Have you ever felt it? That deep, unsettling dissonance. You're doing everything you're supposed to. You seek God. You live with integrity. You work diligently. But your finances seem perpetually trapped, as if caught in an invisible current that always pulls you back from the shore. It feels like there's a blockage you can't see, a governor on your engine that cuts the power just when you're about to break free. It's a quiet, maddening confusion. You pray, you believe, you act in faith, and in return, you get just enough to scrape by, but never enough to advance. The feeling isn't just one of struggle, it's one of illogical contradiction. It's the sense that the spiritual laws you trust are somehow suspended for you, leaving you to question everything, your faith, your actions, even your own value. You stand in the debris of your best efforts, wondering what critical piece of the puzzle you're missing. This gnawing feeling, this spiritual vertigo, is precisely where our journey must begin today. This is the very same confusion that cornered Sophia and David. They had just navigated a difficult season and seen a small but significant victory, a glimmer of hope that things were finally turning in their favor. They felt they had learned the lesson. But then, within a single 24-hour period, their world fractured. A crucial payment promised to David. Money they were depending on to get through the month was suddenly and inexplicably blocked. There was no clear reason, no one to call for an explanation, just a digital dead end. On that exact same day, their son Caleb was hit with a sudden medical issue that required an immediate and unexpected expense. To compound the disaster, their one reliable car broke down on the way to the clinic. It was a cascade of calamities so perfectly timed, it felt scripted. The sensation was crushing. One step forward, two giant leaps back into the abyss. It felt less like a trial and more like a targeted assault, designed to mock their recent victory and break their spirit. And what makes this so profoundly disorienting is the truth we established together in our last video. We came to understand that God uses scarcity to test our hearts, to strip away our self-reliance and teach us to depend on Him as our one and only true source. So why then does this new crisis not feel like a test? Why does it feel like a punishment? This is the heart of the dissonance you might be living in right now. You've learned the lesson of dependence, yet the pressure only seems to intensify. It's a terrifying place to be, and it's where a deeper, more dangerous reality is revealed. But what if this chaos wasn't random at all? What if the timing of these events, the blocked payment, the sudden emergency, the broken down car, wasn't a coincidence? What if the source of this invisible blockage that defies all logic is not what you think it is? This is where our path goes deeper, and I must warn you, the truth we are about to uncover is not for the faint of heart. It is a profound and unsettling revelation about the true nature of your struggle. Frankly, it isn't for everyone. Many will find it easier to click away now, to retreat to the familiar comfort of blaming themselves or questioning God's goodness. The bog of confusion can feel safer than the sharp clarity of truth. Therefore, your choice to stay, to journey with me to the very end of this message, is more than just a decision to watch a video. It is a declaration. It's a signal from your spirit that you are ready to stop being a victim of your circumstances and start understanding the strategic importance of your fight. It is a sign that you have been called to see the battlefield for what it truly is. If you feel that inner resolve, that pull to press forward, then you are exactly who this message is for. You are ready. Let's talk about the silence that comes after the initial shock. It's the heavy, suffocating silence of shame. It's the quiet humiliation you feel when you have to put on a brave face for the world while your own life is financially unraveling. This battle isn't just about money. It's a deeply personal assault on your dignity. As a person of faith, you feel you're supposed to be an example of God's provision, a living testament to His faithfulness. Yet here you are, struggling to stay afloat, which makes you feel like a complete and utter fraud. The isolation is perhaps the cruelest part of the entire experience. You feel like you're the only one going through this, a secret failure in a world that only displays success. You see others move forward and can't help but wonder what you're doing wrong. I need you to hear this, to let it penetrate the wall of shame that has been built around you. You are not alone. In this feeling of being singled out for failure is not evidence of your weakness. It is the brand of your calling. The confusion, the shame, the isolation, these are the hallmarks of a process reserved for those who are being prepared for a serious purpose. The question we were left with was, what is the real source of this invisible blockage? The answer is both simpler and more disturbing than you might imagine. The source is an intelligent opposition, but that answer immediately gives rise to a much deeper, more personal question. Why is it opposing you? The reason is that it has identified your potential long before you have. It recognizes the threat you represent, not for who you are today, but for who you are destined to become. Therefore, the chaos you're experiencing isn't just a random series of unfortunate events. It's a sophisticated, multi-pronged assault designed specifically to neutralize you. First, it is an attack on your logic. The problems that arise are intentionally irrational, with timing so perfect it defies coincidence. This is engineered to make you question your own sanity and God's justice. Second, it is an attack of isolation. It aims to fill you with a profound sense of shame that causes you to withdraw from the very people who could support you, convincing you that your struggle is a private failure to be hidden. And third, it is a direct assault on your resources, the tangible means by which you carry out your purpose in the world. The goal is to keep you so consumed with survival that you never have the capacity to focus on your mission. This is the very essence of the humiliation that flooded Sophia's heart. As she sat alone in her house, the weight of their situation pressed down on her. It wasn't just the financial stress. It was the crippling sense that she was a spiritual fraud. How could she, a woman of faith, be facing this level of lack and chaos? She felt an overwhelming urge to talk to someone, but who could she possibly tell? Admitting the depth of their crisis felt like admitting she had failed God himself. In her mind, the whispers began that she was worthless, that her faith was a sham, that she had let her family down. The shame was a physical barrier, isolating her in a prison of her own fear and anxiety. She was experiencing the coordinated attack in real time. The illogical circumstances were fueling the isolating shame, and both were a result of the direct assault on their finances. This wasn't just a bad day. It was a spiritual and psychological siege. This feeling, this coordinated pressure on your mind, your relationships, and your finances is not a figment of your imagination. It is a strategy. Acknowledging its existence is the first step toward dismantling it. So I need you to be brutally honest with yourself right now. This is your first step in reclaiming your spiritual authority. Do you feel that your financial problems are illogical, that they seem almost coordinated or invisible? I'm not asking for your life story, not yet. I am simply asking for an act of personal acknowledgement. In the comments below, post a simple yes or no. This isn't for me, nor is it for an algorithm. This is for you. It is your first declaration that you see the pattern. It's the moment you stop calling it bad luck and start identifying the real nature of the battle you are in. Let's be honest about the part that truly makes you want to quit. It's not just your own struggle. It's the agonizing paradox of watching those who do wrong prosper. This is the suspicion that eats at your soul. You see people who are corrupt, who lack integrity, who are openly antagonistic to every value you hold dear, and their lives seem to flow with effortless abundance. They get the promotion, they close the deal, their businesses flourish, and you, who honors God, who pays your taxes, who tries to live with absolute integrity, are the one counting pennies to fix your car. It creates a burning indignation in your spirit, a feeling that the entire universe is fundamentally unjust. And I am here to tell you that anger is not a sin. It is valid. It is the righteous reaction of a spirit that is calibrated to a divine standard. You are feeling the dissonance of a kingdom, citizen living in an occupied territory. You are right to be angry because what you are seeing is wrong. You are confirming a deep spiritual suspicion. The system of the world is inverted and it rewards its own. So why does this happen? Why do your honest, logical efforts seem to fail while their corrupt shortcuts lead to success? For years, we've been handed a very convenient, plausible-sounding lie to solve this problem. We are told the issue is simply our mindset. We are told that we carry a poverty consciousness, that we vibrate at a frequency of lack, and that the universe, like a neutral mirror, is just reflecting our own fear back at us. This comfortable explanation suggests that the unethical person prospers simply because they have no internal conflict. They pursue money with a singular, unapologetic focus, and therefore the law must reward them with it. This neatly closes the loop on why our logical efforts fail. It's because our logic is contaminated by fear and self-doubt. So the solution must be simple, right? All you have to do is fix your mindset, eliminate your fear, develop the same singular confidence as them, and you will prosper just as they do. That's the secret, isn't it? That must be the key we are all missing. This is the very rage that boiled in David's gut. While Sophia was drowning in the shame of their predicament, David was burning with indignation. He had just hung up the phone, the news of the blocked payment echoing in his ears, the cold dread of Caleb's medical need settling in his stomach. And as he stared blankly out the kitchen window, he watched it happen. His neighbor, a man notorious for shady deals and questionable ethics, was taking delivery of a brand new luxury vehicle. He could hear the neighbor's loud, triumphant laugh from across the street. The gleam of the metallic paint seemed to mock David's pain. This wasn't just jealousy over a car. It was the crushing weight of systemic injustice. David had done everything right, playing by the rules of honesty and faith, and he was being financially suffocated. His neighbor had broken every rule and was being publicly celebrated. This scene confirmed David's deepest suspicion. The game is rigged. That anger you feel, the rage David felt, is righteous, but the mindset's secret is a devastating false resolution. The truth is, the reason they prosper without conflict is because they are not in conflict. They are perfectly aligned with the values and systems of this fallen world. You are not. Your struggle, your internal conflict, your very confusion is the ultimate proof that you are operating under a different jurisdiction. You are not failing at their game. You are being rigorously trained for a completely different one. You are being prepared for a level of authority and stewardship they can never possess. They are winning chips in a casino that is scheduled for demolition. You are being forged to inherit the kingdom. This realization forces a choice. You can keep trying to win at their temporary game, or you can embrace the difficult, often painful, process of being prepared for something eternal. This choice requires a spiritual declaration. This is an act of sealing your position. I want you to declare your allegiance right now. In the comments, write this sentence: I choose the divine process. This is not just a comment. It is you planting a flag, rejecting the cheap victories of the world, and sealing your commitment to the sacred, difficult path that leads to your true inheritance. You've chosen the divine process over the world's cheap victories. But what exactly does this process entail? What is the nature of this relentless pressure, this series of illogical setbacks? I'm about to give you the first key to understanding your battle, and it will fundamentally shift the way you view every hardship you are facing. Prepare your heart for this, because the truth is the opposite of what your pain is telling you. The intense, overwhelming pressure you are under right now is not a sign that you have failed or been held back. It is the irrefutable proof that you have been promoted. This chaos, this struggle that feels like a demotion, is in fact your graduation into the next level of spiritual training. You have passed the initial tests, the ones designed to teach you basic trust and dependence, and now you have been moved to advanced maneuvers. You are not being punished. You are being prepared for a greater level of authority and responsibility. Think of it this way. In the scriptures, no leader of any significance was ever forged in the comfort of a palace. Every single one of them, the patriarchs, the prophets, the kings, the apostles, was first driven into a wilderness. The desert became their crucible. Why? Because the palace might teach you how to manage existing resources, but the desert teaches you how to depend on a supernatural source to create them out of nothing. The palace teaches you politics, but the desert teaches you divine strategy. The first phase of their training was always about learning the curriculum of faith. But phase 2, the advanced course, was invariably a season of impossible, illogical pressure. It was a trial by fire designed to burn away the final, stubborn remnants of self-reliance and forge within them a grade of authority that could only be born in the flames. This is the stage you have entered. The simplistic formulas that worked before are no longer sufficient because the challenges are now more complex. This understanding completely shatters the lie of your isolation. You feel separated and alone, not because you have been abandoned by God, but because advanced officer training is, by necessity, a more solitary experience. General cannot run the same drills as the new recruits. Their preparation is for a different kind of warfare. But this powerful revelation immediately forces you to a crossroads. It presents you with a profound moral dilemma, a choice that will define the outcome of your season. If this pain is indeed the very tool of your promotion, then you are left with only 2 possible responses. You can embrace the fire, accepting the forging process in faith, believing that the heat is shaping you into something unbreakable. Or you can curse the flames. You can reject the training, demanding to be sent back to the relative comfort of the barracks where the challenges were simpler. The choice is between seeing your pain as purpose or seeing it only as punishment. And that choice is yours alone. This was the very dilemma that confronted Sophia in the suffocating silence of her home. David was out, trying to handle the cascading logistical nightmares of the car and the blocked payment. Sophia was left alone with the deafening roar of her own thoughts. The feeling of being a spiritual fraud, the isolating shame we spoke of, was threatening to consume her, but then a different thought, quiet and sharp, cut through the noise. It was a memory of a principle she had long forgotten. What if this isn't a setback? What if this is the final exam before a promotion? Instantly, her spirit was at a turning point. One voice screamed for her to give up, to collapse in despair, to curse a God who would allow such relentless pressure. This was the voice of punishment, but another, deeper voice began to reason with a divine calm. The first crisis had taught them dependence on the source. This new crisis, so much more complex and nonsensical, must be designed to teach them something more profound: how to operate with divine authority in the midst of chaos. It wasn't a repeat of an old lesson, it was the graduate-level course. Sophia is at her crossroads, and right now, so are you. Your pain has just been given a new name: training. Your struggle has been redefined as the strategic ground for your advancement. You are not being broken. You are being built. Now you must seal this revelation over your own life. You must declare your acceptance of this promotion. Go to the comments and make this declaration of faith: I am advancing to the next phase of training. By typing these words, you are serving notice to every opposing force, to your own fear, and to your self-doubt that you understand the nature of this engagement. You are no longer a victim of the process. You are an active, willing participant in your own becoming. You have accepted the promotion. You are in the next phase of training. But what is the primary objective of this new, more intense curriculum? The syllabus is deceptively simple. Every advanced test you will ever face, every trial by fire, is designed to answer one single question. Who is your source? Not just in theory, not in a line you sing in a song, but in the gut-wrenching, terrifying moment of crisis. The last lesson was understanding that God is your source. This new lesson is about proving you actually believe it when the pressure is on. This is a field test, not a classroom lecture. And everything is on the line because your enemy understands this principle better than you do. He knows that the strategic target is never your bank account. That is merely the battlefield. The real target is your confidence in the source. He attacks your finances with such surgical precision because it is the quickest and most effective way to trigger your deepest survival instincts. It's a tactic to induce spiritual amnesia, to make you forget every lesson you've ever learned in the spirit and revert to the panic of human reason. The goal is to create a crisis so urgent, so seemingly practical, that you abandon your reliance on God and scramble for a human-made solution. He wants you to trust your own strength, your own connections, your own ingenuity, because he knows that the moment you take your eyes off your true source, you have disconnected yourself from the supply line. This is the oldest trick in the book, yet it works with devastating efficiency, time and time again. The people of God were taught this lesson relentlessly in their wilderness training. When there was no food, a strange bread appeared on the ground. When there was no water, it flowed from a rock. The lesson was brutal but clear. The source is never the method you expect, nor the channel you're familiar with. The source is the one who invents the methods. The supply is infinite, but it only flows to those who look to the provider, not the provision. So, back in that silent house, Sophia made her choice. She rejected the moral dilemma of despair and chose to see the chaos as her training ground. She anchored her spirit in faith. But what happens in the real world when you make a spiritual choice like that? Does a miracle instantly fire off? Does the blocked payment magically appear in their bank account? The answer, almost always, is no, because the test isn't over just because you've decided to pass it. While Sophia was making her profound spiritual stand, David was out in the world, doing the exact opposite. He was running on pure, unfiltered human adrenaline and fear. In his panic, he forgot everything they had learned. His mind was racing, not for a divine strategy, but for a quick fix. He frantically searched his phone for high interest, short-term payday loans, ignoring the crippling cost. He called a contact he knew was a compromise, a friend who operated in the same gray areas as his neighbor, hoping for a fast, no-questions-asked loan. He was operating entirely in his own strength, driven by a terror that was eclipsing his faith. Every single door slammed shut in his face. The loan application was instantly denied due to the sudden, inexplicable freeze on his finances. His call went to voicemail. Every human effort he made, every logical and practical solution he tried to force, only deepened his sense of failure and desperation. He returned home hours later, completely defeated, only to find Sophia not in a state of panic, but in a state of profound, resolute peace. The contrast between her calm and his chaos was so stark it stopped him in his tracks. And in that moment, the truth hit him like a physical blow. He had been so obsessed with finding a source of money that he had completely forgotten the source of everything. The crisis was not a test of his ability to solve the problem. It was a test of who he would turn to first. This is the absolute core of the test you are in right now. The pressure is strategically designed to make you run to a human solution, but the breakthrough you are praying for is waiting on the other side of your realignment. Your job is not your source. Your savings are not your source. Your brilliant business plan is not your source. There is only one source. You must activate this principle in your life as a conscious act of spiritual warfare. It is a declaration that anchors your spirit and clarifies your strategy. Go to the comments right now and declare it with authority. God is my source. This is more than a statement of belief. It is an act of spiritual alignment. It is the command that tells every lesser, temporary source to fall back into its proper place. You have declared that God is your source. This is the foundational truth, but making that declaration doesn't end the test. It unlocks the next, more invasive phase of it. Once you identify your source, the source itself begins to examine your heart with a piercing question. Are you truly ready for what I want to give you? The third reason for your struggle is perhaps the most personal and difficult to face. God allows the financial pressure, and He specifically allows you to witness the prosperity of the unrighteous. To conduct a test on your heart, He uses the assault from the enemy and the allure of the world as a diagnostic tool to reveal what you truly worship. Is it Him or is it mammon? Is your desire for His presence or for the presence He can provide? This is a terrifying question, because the prosperity you are praying for could actually destroy you if your heart is not prepared to handle it. So, the struggle you are enduring is not just a lesson in dependence. It is a necessary purification of your motives. The failure of your own human efforts serves a critical purpose. It forces you to stop looking at your empty hands and start examining your own heart. This is the deeper internal truth revealed when the easy miracle doesn't happen. The reason your human efforts failed, the reason the money didn't just appear, is because the test shifted from being about your strategy to being about your soul. This revelation immediately opens up two new fronts in your spiritual battle. First, it unleashes the poison of envy. The sight of the wicked prospering is no longer just an external injustice to be observed. It becomes a direct temptation, whispering that God's way is too slow, too hard, and that the world's way offers a faster reward. Second, it triggers the deep-seated fear of insufficiency. The constant pressure makes you question if you will ever have enough, which is a direct assault on your ability to find contentment and peace in God's provision. Right here, right now, this is the heart test, a battle between envy for what others have and trust in what God has promised. This was the raw, painful truth that surfaced in the quiet of David and Sophia's home. When David returned, defeated and filled with righteous anger at the injustice of their neighbor, he expected Sophia to share his fury. But she, having already passed through her own moral dilemma, looked at him with a startling clarity. "I was angry too, David," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "I was furious, but then I had to admit something ugly to God. My anger wasn't righteous. I was angry because I wanted His car. I didn't want His character. I didn't want His soul or His relationship with God. I wanted His new shiny thing." In that moment of brutal honesty, the true nature of the test was laid bare. It wasn't about the injustice of the world. It was about the idolatry hidden in her own heart. The crisis had exposed her desire for the very thing the corrupt system was offering, forcing her to confront the part of her that still worshipped the god of materialism. And now, it's your turn. Your heart is on the examination table. Let's do a test right now, a moment of absolute honesty between you and God. If this very second $1 million appeared in your bank account, tax-free, what is the absolute number one, very first thing you would do with it? Don't give the right spiritual answer. Give the honest one. What is the immediate gut-level impulse? Would you buy a house, pay off debt, go on a vacation, start a ministry? I want you to post that honest first thought in the comments below. This is not for me to judge you. This is a tool for you to reveal your own heart to yourself. This is your test. It's a sacred moment of self-confrontation that will define your readiness for the next level. What is your first thought? Declare it now. You've confronted your own heart. It's a crucial step, but now we must address the most agonizing weapon used in this war: the delay, the wait. The agonizing, soul-crushing period of silence where you have prayed, You have acted, you have passed the tests, and still nothing happens. The door that you need to open remains shut. The breakthrough you are contending for remains just out of reach. This period of waiting is a sophisticated form of psychological warfare. Your enemy uses the delay as a weapon to breed anxiety, to cultivate doubt, and to make you question God's goodness. He wants the silence to convince you that your prayers are hitting a brass ceiling, that you have been forgotten. This is his primary strategy, to break your spirit in the waiting. But you must understand this. It is one of the most profound secrets of the kingdom. God uses the very same delay the enemy designs for your destruction as the primary tool for your construction. The enemy sends the fire to consume you. God uses that same fire to forge you. This is why the popular mindset secret we talked about earlier is one of the most dangerous half-truths you will ever hear. That false resolution tells you that the delay is entirely your fault, a product of your poverty consciousness or your vibration of lack. It is a lie, wrapped in a kernel of truth, designed to heap condemnation upon you while you are already under fire. It makes you the sole architect of your own prison. While your mindset is undeniably important, the delay you are experiencing is not just in your head, it is a real spiritual phenomenon. Debunking that lie creates a shocking realization. If the delay is not just my fault, and my mindset isn't the magic key, then why is the door still shut? Why does it feel like I'm pushing against a mountain? This question moves you from self-blame to strategic awareness. You are not just fighting your own negative thoughts, you are contending with a spiritual reality. This was the grinding daily reality for David. Every single morning, he would wake up with a knot of dread in his stomach. The first thing he would do is check his phone, praying to see that the payment had been released. And every single day, the balance was the same. Nothing. Each day that the payment remained blocked was another 24-hour cycle of terror. The whispers of fear grew louder. You're a failure. You let your family down. God has abandoned you. The delay was a relentless assault on his mind and his faith. But something else was happening in that crucible of waiting. Every day that the miracle didn't come was another day he was forced to look past his own strength. He was forced to dig deeper for a resilience he didn't know he had. He was compelled to find a peace that was not based on his circumstances. The terror was real, but in the heart of that terror, an unshakable strength was being forged in him, one day at a time. The delay was hell, but it was also a holy ground of transformation. This season of delay you are in is not imaginary. It is not a simple mindset problem you can just think your way out of. It is a spiritual reality, a strategic battleground, and the first step to winning a war is to acknowledge you are in one. I want you to do that right now. This is a moment to create a testament of solidarity, to show yourself and others that you are not alone in this fight. In the comments below, I want you to confirm the nature of your battle. Simply write, "I am in a season of delay," or "I feel blocked right now." This is not a confession of defeat, it is a declaration of awareness. You are naming the battleground, and in the kingdom of God, to name a thing is the first step to taking authority over it. Make your declaration now. You have named the season of delay. You have acknowledged the battle. Now we arrive at the fourth reason for your struggle, the core truth that connects everything else we have discussed. This is the revelation that many find difficult to accept, but it is the key that will unlock your understanding and your authority. The illogical failures, the testing of your heart, the agonizing delays, they are all symptoms of a single overarching reality. Spiritual warfare is not a metaphor, it is a real conflict, and its primary earthly battlefield is your finances. The invisible blockage you feel, the coordinated chaos that descends just when you are about to make progress, is an intentional, strategic assault from an intelligent enemy. Your financial life is under attack because it is the logistical supply line for your purpose. To control your money is to control your mission. This is the war, and you are in it. But here is the part you have been missing, the critical reframe that will change everything for you. You have been looking at this attack as evidence of your failure or weakness. You have wondered, what am I doing wrong to deserve this? That is the wrong question. The truth is, you are not being attacked because you are weak. You are being attacked because you are dangerous. You are not being targeted because you are failing. You are being targeted because of the magnitude of the threat you will be when you succeed. A person of faith who is broke and bound by debt is manageable, but a person of faith who is financially free, unbound, and able to fund the work of the kingdom, that is a strategic nightmare for the enemy's system. The intensity of the battle you are facing is a direct measure of the importance of the destiny you carry. The assault is not a sign of your insignificance. It is the ultimate confirmation of your strategic importance. Think of the builders in the book of Nehemiah, tasked with rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem. They did not work in peace. They were under constant threat from an enemy who mocked them, plotted against them, and tried to stop their progress at every turn. So what was their strategy? They built, with a tool in one hand and a sword in the other. They understood that progress and warfare were not separate seasons. They were a single, simultaneous reality. This is your reality now. You're trying to build a life of purpose, and you must understand that you will do so while under active opposition. This knowledge must now force you to a moral dilemma, a warrior's choice. Now that you know you are in a war, what will you do? Will you retreat in fear, hoping the enemy will leave you alone if you abandon your mission? Or will you accept your role, pick up your sword, and keep building even under fire? The illogical, cascading disaster that hit David and Sophia was the perfect evidence of this truth. Look at it again, not as bad luck, but as a coordinated strike. The payment wasn't just late, it was inexplicably blocked. The medical need wasn't minor, it was urgent and unexpected. The car didn't just get a flat tire, it broke down completely, all on the same day, right after a spiritual victory. This was not a random sequence of events. It was a clear, intelligent, and malicious counterattack designed to neutralize them, to convince them that their faith was pointless and that progress was impossible. It was proof that they were on the enemy's radar. It is time to change your posture. You are not a victim in this story. You are a threat. You are not a liability to the kingdom of heaven. You are a high-value asset being targeted for neutralization. It's time you started seeing yourself that way. I want you to make a formal declaration of your position in this war. In the comments below, write this sentence as an act of spiritual authority. I am dangerous to the enemy's system. This is more than a comment. This is you picking up your sword. This is the moment you stop asking why you are being attacked and start understanding the real reason. Declare it now. You have declared that you are dangerous to the enemy's system. You have accepted your position in a war. This is the beginning of your victory, but we must be strategic. An enemy cannot attack a fortified city without a legal point of entry, a crack in the wall, an unlocked gate, a treacherous inside man. In spiritual warfare, the same is true. The opposition you face needs an open door, a legal right of access to your life and finances. And here is a truth that will confirm a deep suspicion you may have carried for years, often. That door was opened long before you were born. The battle you are fighting today is not just your own. You are fighting the echo of your family's past. You are contending with generational patterns of lack, debt, and poverty that have been passed down your bloodline. Think about it. Is there a recurring theme in your family's financial story? A pattern of just enough to get by, a cycle of being on the verge of a breakthrough only to have it inexplicably fall apart at the last second. This is the pattern of almost success, and it is a spiritual stronghold. The reason the battle is so uniquely intense for you is because you have been divinely chosen to be the one who finally slams that door shut. You have been anointed to be the cycle breaker. Your struggle is not a curse. It is the arena of your calling. You are the one who will put an end to the spiritual inheritance of lack and establish a new legacy of freedom and abundance for the generations that come after you. This is why the fight is so fierce. The enemy system is not just fighting you. It is fighting to maintain a stronghold that has been in place for decades. Your victory is not just personal. It is generational. This is the choice you made when you decided to be dangerous. You chose to advance in faith, to pick up your sword and fight. And when you made that choice, God began to give you the strategic intelligence you need to win. The first piece of that intelligence is identifying the enemy's entry point. But once you identify it, a new, practical question immediately arises. How exactly do you break a pattern that is older and more established than you are? This was the question that haunted David after they accepted their role in this war. He and Sophia were sitting together, the initial shock replaced by a grim resolve. He kept replaying the events in his head, searching for a logic that wasn't there. "It's a coordinated attack," he said, "but why? Where is it coming from?" And as he spoke, a forgotten memory surfaced. It was a conversation with his own father years ago. His father, a good and hard-working man, had spent his entire life on the edge of a breakthrough that never materialized, a crucial business deal that mysteriously fell through, a promotion that was guaranteed but given to someone else, a critical payment that was inexplicably delayed, causing a cascade of failures. The memory hit David with the force of a physical blow. He looked at Sophia, his eyes wide with a horrifying revelation. "It's the same pattern," he whispered. "The almost success, the promise that is always just out of reach. It happened to him his entire life, and now it's happening to me." He wasn't just fighting his own battle, he was fighting his father's. Does this sound familiar? Look back honestly. Do you recognize a recurring pattern of lack, struggle, or almost success in your own family's history? A spirit of poverty that seems to cling to your lineage? If you do, it is not a coincidence. It is your battlefield, and today you will take your post. It is time to declare your God-given assignment. Go to the comments right now and make this declaration of war against the past for the sake of your future. Write these words: "I am the cycle breaker in my lineage." This is not just a comment. It is you accepting your calling. It is you taking your stand at the gate and serving notice to an ancient enemy that its lease has expired. This is your legacy, beginning now. You have taken your position as the cycle breaker in your lineage. You have asked the most important question: how? The answer begins not with a mystical formula, but with a foundational principle that is both profoundly simple and excruciatingly difficult. The first key, the absolute non-negotiable weapon you must wield to break every generational pattern of lack, is uncompromising integrity. I want you to let that sink in. The spiritual war you are in is not ultimately a battle for money. It is a battle for your character. God is not looking for people he can simply bless. He is looking for people he can trust. He is raising up managers, stewards, and rulers, not lottery winners. And so, he uses the intense pressure of the spiritual attack as a crucible to test and purify your integrity. The heat is turned up to see if you will compromise. Will you cut corners? Will you bend the truth? Will you choose the easy wrong over the hard right? The delay is allowed to continue to see if you can be trusted. Your struggle is not a sign of his absence. It is the environment of his most intense evaluation. The answer to how you break the cycle, then, is by proving your character is ready for the next level. But the moment you commit to a path of absolute integrity, the enemy makes his most strategic and seductive countermove. He sees your desperation, he feels your pain in the delay, and he offers you his favorite weapon, the shortcut, the gray area, the opportunity that isn't quite illegal but isn't quite righteous either. This is the temptation of the quick fix. An offer to end your suffering immediately if you will only compromise your principles. And this offer comes with a terrifying, implicit threat that choosing the path of integrity will cost you more in the short term, that it might even be the final thing that sinks you. This is the new battle you now face, the war between your painful integrity and the enemy's poisonous relief. This is exactly the test that was placed before David. He was at his absolute lowest point. The financial pressure was suffocating, and the feeling of failure was a constant torment. As he was outside one afternoon, his corrupt neighbor, the man with the new luxury car, approached him. With a look of fake sympathy, he said, "Hey, I heard you're in a bit of a jam. It's a tough world out there for guys who play by the old rules. Listen, I have a side deal going on. It's a bit creative, but I could get you a cash payment that would solve all your problems by Friday. You just have to be a little flexible." The offer hung in the air, glittering and toxic. For a fleeting moment, David saw it all: the relief, the ability to pay for Caleb's treatment, to fix the car, to breathe again. All it would take was a small compromise, a slight bending of the values he claimed to live by. He was staring at an instant, easy escape from the furnace, and in that moment he made a choice. He looked the man in the eyes and said, "Thanks, but I'll pass. I'll find another way." He chose the pain of the process over the poison of the shortcut. David was tested when he was at his weakest, and you are being tested right now in the middle of your crisis. Your values are not defined when things are easy. They are forged and revealed when everything is on the line. The enemy is offering you a way out that will cost you your soul. God is offering you a way through that will build your character. You must choose. So let's make it plain. You are in the fire. The unethical shortcut is now on the table. Do you choose the quick blessing or the difficult integrity? This is a defining moment. Post your answer in the comments below. This is your public declaration of who you are when the pressure is on. You have chosen integrity. You have refused the shortcut. This is the armor of a warrior. It is your defense. Now it is time to learn how to go on the offensive. You have been in a defensive posture, weathering the attacks, but the kingdom of God is not about holding territory. It is about taking it. There is a spiritual principle, a strategic weapon so powerful that it shatters the logic of the world and strikes at the very heart of the enemy's assault. It is the principle of faithfulness in the little, especially when you are under attack. Your generosity, your commitment to honor God with the first fruits of what you have, even when what you have is next to nothing, is the single most powerful act of spiritual warfare you can engage in. It is a prophetic declaration that God, not your bank account, is your source. It is an act of defiance against the spirit of fear that is trying to suffocate you. This offensive move is the direct antidote to the poison of envy that we spoke of. Think about it. Envy is the worship of what someone else possesses. Sacrificial giving is the worship of God with what you possess. The two mindsets cannot coexist in the same heart. When you give from your lack, you are telling God and the enemy that your trust is not in what you can accumulate, but in your source's ability to provide. You break the power of comparison and envy by activating the power of covenant and trust. The world tells you to hoard what you have when you are in a crisis. The kingdom tells you to sow it. This is the turning point in the battle. This is where the victim becomes the victor, not by getting more, but by giving from what they already have. It is an act of faith so illogical that it short-circuits the entire system of the enemy. This was the strategic shift that took place between David and Sophia. After David refused the corrupt offer from his neighbor, a quiet resolve settled in their home. They had held the line, but they were still in a desperate situation. As they sat at their kitchen table, looking at the grim reality of their bank balance, Sophia looked at David and proposed something that sounded like complete madness. "We have to do it now," she said. "We have to give." She was talking about their tithe, the first portion they had set aside from the small amount of money they had left. David's first reaction was pure logic. Are you insane? We can't even pay for Caleb's treatment. We can't afford to give anything away. But Sophia was firm. This isn't about affording it, she replied. This is about breaking the fear. Fear is controlling us. If we hoard this, we are telling fear that it is our master. If we release it, we are declaring that God is our source. After a long silence, David understood. With trembling hands, they made the transfer, an act of defiant, desperate, beautiful faith. A wave of peace washed over them. They had done it. They had gone on the offensive. And then, less than an hour later, David's phone buzzed. It was an email from their son's school. A notification about a forgotten school activity fee, due immediately. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was more than they had expected, and it felt like a punch to the gut. The peace they had felt instantly evaporated, replaced by a cold, sickening dread. Their act of ultimate faith had not been met with a miracle. It had been met with another bill. It felt like their sacrifice had been pointless, like they had been mocked for their belief. Their situation was now impossibly even worse than before. This is the nature of the test. It is not just whether you will have integrity, it is whether you will be faithful, even when it makes no sense. Even when the immediate result of your faithfulness looks like a catastrophic failure. This is the highest level of trust. This is a principle you must seal in your spirit before you are tested. In the comments below, make this declaration of war against the spirit of fear. Write this sentence: I am faithful in the little, even under attack. This is your commitment to an offensive faith. A faith that advances no matter what the circumstances look like. You've chosen integrity. You are faithful in the little, even under attack. Yet the pressure has not lifted. In fact, it may have just gotten worse. This brings us to the final, most important question of all. Why? Why is the battle over your finances so personal, so relentless, so disproportionate to what you even have? The enemy's opposition seems far too intense for your small bank account. We have to look past the symptoms, the blocked payments, the unexpected bills, and ask what the true target is. The answer will change your perspective forever. The enemy is not attacking your past debts or your present income. He is attacking your future assignment. He is attacking your calling. He knows something about your destiny that you may have only just begun to suspect. You were not designed to be a reservoir of blessing, but a river. You were not created to simply accumulate and consume. You were created to be a conduit for the kingdom of God. You have been called to be a steward. This one revelation is the key that unlocks everything. Suddenly, the other battles make sense. The fear of insufficiency that has haunted you is a lie, designed to keep your vision small, focused only on your own survival. How can you fear insufficiency when you understand you are destined to manage the resources of an infinite God? The temptation of the gray area shortcut and the fear of the cost of integrity are exposed for what they are: cheap disqualification tests. The enemy offers you a small, dirty prize to make you forfeit an unimaginably large and holy inheritance. He is terrified of you passing the character test because he knows what happens when a person of radical integrity gets their hands on radical resources. The attack is not about keeping you in debt. It's about keeping you from your throne of stewardship. And this revelation brings you to the final, ultimate moral dilemma of your financial life. It clarifies the nature of your prayers. There are two types of prayer. The first is the prayer for relief. It's a desperate cry. God, please just get me out of this mess. Just make the pain stop. There is nothing wrong with this prayer, but it is the prayer of a victim. The second is the prayer for purpose. It's the prayer of a warrior. God, whatever it takes, make me ready for my assignment. Forge in me the character to handle what you want to release through me. This is the great choice. Will you settle for the simple comfort of relief, content to just get back to zero? Or will you embrace the awesome weight and responsibility of your calling as a steward, knowing the tests will be harder, but the purpose will be infinitely greater? This was the epiphany that struck David and Sophia in their darkest moment. Staring at the new, unexpected bill after their act of radical faith, despair began to set in. It felt hopeless, and then a new thought cut through the darkness. "This is insane," David said, almost laughing. "The amount of firepower being used against us, it's not proportional to our little life. It's like bringing a battleship to sink a rowboat." Sophia looked at him, and a new light dawned in her eyes. "Maybe you're right," she said. "Maybe the attack isn't proportional to our income. Maybe it's proportional to our calling." In that instant, they understood. The enemy wasn't fighting the small, struggling couple they were. He was fighting the massively resourced, world-changing stewards they were destined to become. The attack wasn't proof of their failure. It was the ultimate confirmation of the size of their destiny. Your destiny is not just to be debt-free. It is to be a distribution center for heaven on earth. What would you do with true kingdom wealth? What injustice would you fight? What ministry would you fund? What dream would you build for the glory of God? If you are ready to move past the prayer for mere relief and step into your divine assignment, you must accept the calling. In the comments below, make it official. Declare your acceptance. Write, "I accept the calling of a steward." If you are still here, if you have journeyed with me to this point, I need you to recognize something profound. You are not the same person you were when this video began. You have endured the weight of a heavy truth, and that endurance is a testament to the strength that has been forged in you. Let's look back at the ground we have covered. We started with the maddening dissonance of doing everything right and seeing everything go wrong. We walked through the isolating shame that makes you feel like a spiritual fraud, and the righteous anger at the paradox of a world where the corrupt seem to prosper while you struggle. We have reframed your entire battle. You now understand that your struggle is not a punishment, but a promotion to an advanced level of training. You know that the crisis is a test of who you will turn to as your source. You have faced the uncomfortable truth of the test of your own heart, your own motives, and your own integrity. You have learned the offensive weapon of faithfulness in the little, even while under attack. And finally, you have been shown the ultimate reason for the ferocity of this war, the magnitude of your calling. As a steward for the kingdom of God, do you see the pattern now? Every illogical failure, every painful delay, every confusing setback, it was not random. It was not punishment. It was never, ever abandonment. It was preparation. It was the meticulous, often excruciating process of a master craftsman forging a vessel capable of handling immense pressure and immense purpose. The heat of the furnace was not meant to destroy you, but to purify you. The blows of the hammer were not meant to shatter you, but to shape you. The entire war that you have been fighting, the battle that you thought was proof of your failure, was in fact the final, undeniable evidence of your calling. An enemy does not waste his most sophisticated weapons on a low-value target. The intensity of the opposition has always been the greatest compliment to the importance of your destiny. You faced the final choice, to pray for the simple relief of a victim, or to accept the heavy, glorious responsibility of a steward. By staying, by engaging, by accepting this truth, you have chosen your assignment. So what happens now? What is the immediate result when a warrior has been tested, proven, and has formally accepted their assignment in the middle of a battlefield? This is the moment where everything shifts. The understanding is complete. The training has been assimilated. The position has been taken. The declaration has been made. But the battle still rages. The circumstances may not have changed yet. The bank account may still be empty. The blocked payment may still be blocked. The need is still urgent. The lessons are not magic spells that instantly alter reality. They are truths that anchor your spirit. So you can stand firm until the reality you see aligns with the truth you now know. This requires one final, all-encompassing act of faith. It requires you to look at the entire, painful, beautiful, terrifying process and believe in the wisdom of the one who designed it. You now have the blueprint for your battle. You understand the why behind your what. There is only one thing left to do before you receive the weapons for the next phase of your war. You must place your complete and total trust in the wisdom of the process itself, even the parts that still hurt, even the parts you do not yet fully understand. As a final seal on everything we have uncovered together, go to the comments and make the ultimate declaration of faith, the one that covers your past, your present, and your future. Write these words: I trust the process of God. This is your statement of absolute confidence in the wisdom of the potter. Even while you are still the clay being spun on the wheel, this is your final surrender to the loving, perfect, and powerful will of your King. You have trusted the process. You have accepted your calling. You ask the question, what happens now? Now we enforce the victory. But before we pray, you must understand the truth behind that final, painful attack. The moment you gave in faith and were met with an even bigger bill, you thought your sacrifice was punished. The opposite is true. That was the enemy's last, desperate counteroffensive. Your act of sacrificial giving was such a direct hit on his fortress of fear that he emptied his cannons in a final, panicked volley to convince you that your faith doesn't work. It was not a sign of your defeat. It was the ultimate proof that your breakthrough was imminent. He only attacks with that much ferocity when he is about to lose significant ground. That final bill was not a period. It was a comma, a final, futile attempt to delay the full stop of your victory. Now you see the truth. And now, with this understanding, we do not beg, we legislate. We take the authority that has been forged in you through this entire process, and we render a verdict in the courts of heaven. So prepare your heart. This is your moment of release. Father, in the name of your Son, Jesus, I come before you on behalf of your warrior, this chosen one who has endured the fire and refused to break. Stand with them now, not as a victim, but as a joint heir. And we look at the invisible blockage that has hindered them, the source of which we now understand. And in the authority of that name that is above every name, I speak to every spiritual force, every demonic assignment, every principality that has been arrayed against their finances and their destiny. We serve you notice. Your lease has expired. Your legal right, granted through generational patterns of lack and almost success, is hereby revoked by the blood of the covenant. We command that ancient gate to be shut permanently. Every cycle of poverty, every spirit of debt, every assignment of delay that has plagued this bloodline, we declare it is broken. Right now, the pattern stops here. The buck stops now. We command every force of hindrance to cease and desist. Release their resources. Release their payments. Release their opportunities. Your assignment is over. And now, Father, we turn to you. Having cleared the battlefield, we ask you to release the provision for the vision. You have tested and proven the heart of your steward. You have forged in them a character of integrity and faithfulness. Now, we ask for the release of the anointing for their assignment. Release the divine strategies, the heavenly ideas, the creative concepts that bring supernatural wealth for the sake of the kingdom. Open the doors that no man can shut. Connect them to the people they need to know. Give them favor in the marketplace. We declare that the season of being just a survivor is over, and the season of being a supernatural supplier has begun. We call forth the resources from the north, the south, the east, and the west. We declare that their hands are now ready to receive, and their heart is now ready to distribute. We call them a river, not a reservoir. We release upon them the wisdom of the steward, the spirit of excellence, the grace to manage much. The legacy of lack is over. The legacy of kingdom abundance begins today. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. The verdict has been rendered. The Prayer has been decreed. Now you must receive it. This is not a passive moment. This is an active receiving. Before you do anything else, you must seal this victory in the spiritual realm with an act of faith. Go to the comments right now and take possession of what has just been released. Do not hesitate. Write this declaration: I receive and take possession of my victory. This is the sound of chains breaking. This is the sound of a new season beginning. This is your hammer strike, driving the stake of your victory into the ground. Do it now. You have taken possession of your victory. The verdict from heaven's court has been rendered, and the chains of the past have been broken. You now possess the strategic understanding to identify and dismantle the financial attacks of the enemy. You have the keys. You understand that your struggle is not a sign of failure, but a confirmation of your high calling. You have been armed and authorized. The war against the opposition is one you now know how to fight. You have learned his tactics, his motivations, and the weapons you must use to defeat him. This is a profound and life-altering truth, a platform of victory from which you will now operate. But I must give you a solemn warning. There is another level to this journey. There is a battle that is more subtle, more confusing, and in many ways more dangerous than the open warfare you have just learned to navigate. You are now prepared for the enemy's assault. But are you prepared for God's protection? Hold on to your heart, because this is the question that will define the next season of your life. What happens when the blessing you have been praying for, the opportunity you have been begging for, finally appears on the horizon? But the one who blocks it, the one who shuts the door, is not your enemy? What do you do when the painful, inexplicable delay comes directly from the hand of God Himself? This is the next phase of your training as a steward. You have learned to recognize an attack from the enemy. Now, you must learn to recognize an act of protection from your Father, even when it feels exactly like a rejection. It is a level of trust, so profound that it confuses even the most seasoned spiritual warriors. And it is the secret you must learn next if you are to be entrusted with true kingdom wealth. David and Sophia are about to step out of the fiery furnace of spiritual warfare and into a completely different kind of test. A golden opportunity is about to appear, a business deal that promises quick, easy money, enough to solve every one of their problems and more. It will look precisely like the answer to the prayer they just prayed. It will feel like the breakthrough they have bled for, but they are about to discover that some open doors are well-disguised traps, designed to give you the provision while destroying your character. They will find that sometimes God's greatest act of love is a slammed door in the face. His most profound act of protection is a devastating last-minute delay that saves you from a success that would have destroyed you. In our next video, we will uncover this difficult and critical secret of the kingdom, the protection of the delay. We will discover why God often closes the very doors we are begging Him to open, and why He withholds the blessing until our character is ready to sustain it. If this message has armed you for your battle, then strengthen its reach for others who are still fighting in the dark. Like this video as a testament to your victory, and subscribe to this channel to join the army of stewards who are being trained. Do not miss the next phase of your preparation, but the next revelation is heavier. It requires a trust that goes beyond understanding. So, I must ask you, are you ready for it? Can you handle the truth about God's mysterious and often painful methods of protection? If you are, go to the comments one last time and declare it. Write, I am ready for the next secret. Your declaration is your first step into the next level of your training as a true steward of the King.